Man be man is back.
Oh, okay, boys, done it again. Oh my gosh, the ring got messed up. This is a 5 out of freaking 5.
It is beat making time.
Next week is E3 week. My album comes out next week.
I have delivered. You talk to us, you talk to him, but oh, look at that, my God.
This is your boy. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube citizens, y'all know who this is. This is your boy Dash the True Inferno. And I'm back with another Call of Duty Battlefront 2 beta gameplay. And I'm going to talk about a topic that I started talking about a number of weeks ago. But topics and news keep coming up, and topics based off of real world events and things of that nature. And it prevented me from making a part 2 of this topic. So, what am I talking about? Y'all should have seen this thumbnail. Y'all should have seen the title. I'm talking about the top 10 worst Power Ranger shows. Now, I did part 1 of Right or Bad, so if you want to see that, or if you missed that, I recommend you click on the top right corner now and watch part 1, then come back and watch part 2. So, with that said, let's resume our countdown. Let's start off going back to number 10, I said, which was Lost Galaxy. Number 9, I said, was Light Speed Rescue, followed by number 8, Jungle Fury. Number 7, Super and Regular Dino Charge, and number 6 was Samurai / Super Samurai. Now, let's get on with number 5, Wild Force. Wild Force, like, it was okay. Like, it had a decent story, you know, about the whole Red Ranger looking for his parents. And I had to say, like, it's kind of deep because he actually found his parents. They were both dead, so I mean, yeah, it was kind of an emotional thing right there. And, you know, that type of emotion always adds fuel to a story, and obviously that's a good thing. But the problem was that it was just, like, the story as a whole didn't really connect with me like that. You know, I didn't see anything here that made me go, oh, man, this is a great show. Now, granted, Wild Force, without question, had 2 of the all-time best Power Rangers team-ups of all time. They did that team-up with Time Force, which was dope as heck, and that was a 2-parter, actually. And in fact, I completed a top 10 Power Ranger team-up list, and the Wild Force Time Force made my top 5. I ain't gonna say where, but it did indeed make my top 5. Now, the other thing that they did another team-up. Because remember, this was the 10th year anniversary of Power Rangers. So they did a 10th year anniversary special where they got just about every Red Ranger in existence to team up for one episode. With the exception of the second ever Red Ranger. I forgot what the scenario was there. Now, story-wise lines, rather, or let me try to explain that again. Based on the story, he got a serious injury and he could never do martial arts again. Now, as far as why he wasn't in the show, like in that 10-year anniversary episode, I have no clue. I truly have no clue. And I learned some background info about the episode. It's really supposed to be a 2-parter. And it like what we got now, even though it was good, it was supposed to be better. It was supposed to be better, but I believe it was because of time restraints and trying to save up on money, things of that nature. That's why we got a 1 episode of that magnitude instead of a 2-parter, or how many parts it was supposed to be. So aside from the 2 Power Ranger team-ups, the entire season or the entire show, Wild Force wasn't anything special. You know, I didn't like the little kid because somebody did, I forgot this dude's name, but he did a review about every single Power Ranger show, and I watched it. And this was a lot of videos we talking about here and there. But I watched it and I remember the little kid, and it was like, this dude is so annoying. Not the actor, but just the character. It was so annoying. And I didn't really see, aside from the teamers, I didn't really see much from Wild Force that made me go, this was a great show. So that's why I got Wild Force 5th worst Power Ranger show of all time. Number 4, Operation Overdrive. Now let me explain something to you guys. Now the first 6 Power Ranger shows that I name on this list, even though they are on this list, they're not that bad. You know, like I said, Light Speed Rescue and Lost Galaxy, they are a part of my top 10 best Power Ranger shows. But seeing how there's not enough Power Ranger shows to split into the top 10 and worst 10, some of those that was in my top 10 will appear in my worst 10. And that was the case with Lightspeed and Lost Galaxy. I really like both of those shows. Jungle Fury, Dino Charge / Super Dino Charge were pretty decent. Were pretty decent. I mean, like I said, they made this list, but it was mostly because they weren't better than my top 10. For the most part, they weren't better than my top 10. Samurai / Super Samurai and Wild Force, well, really, Samurai / Super Samurai was decent at best. While, you know, Dino Charge and Jungle Fury was good, but not better than my top 10. Samurai was decent at best. And with Wild Force, it was okay. It was like a step or two below decent. You know, I tolerated it. So, you know, whatever. But Operation Overdrive was not good. It really wasn't good. Because I got confused. Like, I really did get confused. Because oh my gosh, where to begin? It started off as like a 3-way. Like, you know, if this was a WWE scenario, you heard of a thing called a triple threat match, where you got one guy versus another guy versus another guy. It was kind of like that here. You had the Power Rangers against the Ice People, or the Ice Monsters, against the Fire Monsters. And then another faction shows up. So now it's a Fatal 4. It's just confusing. I'm like, who is with who? Who is against who? And then the Ice Monsters have a comic relief guy who is like the Yeti or something, but he's supposed to be good at heart. I'm like, why did they pair him up with a villain like that? That makes no sense. And the final boss was stupid. It was basically the Fire Monster who just got superpowered. And I'm like, that could have been any one of these major villains. You know, the leader of any one of these evil factions or whatever. And then the thing that messed it up for me was the Red Ranger. The Red Ranger turns out to be, and you know, spoilers alert rather. So if you haven't seen any of these shows and you want to watch them, then yeah, spoiler alert rather. That's all I'm saying. But the Red Ranger is a robot. The Red Ranger is a robot. I'm like, what? That's so stupid. And yeah, it was like a, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming moment. But it was a, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, and it was stupid moment. And I'm like, why did they do that? And then obviously we got to talk about the Power Ranger team up. And here's the thing about this one. This one was the 15th year anniversary special. So what they did was they brought back 5 past Rangers. So they brought back the second ever Black Ranger, Adam. They brought back the Dino Thunder's Kira, the Yellow Ranger. They brought back Ninja Storm's, oh shoot, what's her name? The Blue Ranger, the female. They brought back Mystic Force Green Ranger, and they brought back SPD Red Ranger. But here's the catch with that one: it's not the black dude with dreads. It's not the what's his name? Sky. It's not Sky. It's Bridge. So if you saw SPD, Bridge was the Green. I think I got these names right. Bridge was the Green Ranger, but at the end of SPD, the Red Ranger of the show retired, or he basically quit, and the Blue Ranger became the new Red Ranger. Well, now that we moved up to Operation Overdrive, the Blue Ranger from the show who moved up to the Red Ranger, I'm assuming is now the Captain Commander, and Bridge, who started off at the Green Ranger, moved up to now being the Red Ranger. So when he appeared on Once a Ranger episode, Village, I think it was like a 2 or 3-parter, he was the Red Ranger. He was the not Lightspeed, but SPD Red Ranger. So you got 5, and then here's the thing that's so stupid. Here's the thing that's stupid. Here's what happened. In this episode, remember how I said it was like a Fatal 4-way or a Fatal 5-way, whatever. So and there was just so many issues with the crossover. Let me explain real quick. Lord Zed and Rita had a son, and I'm like, that's a fail. Because first of all, if you recall Space, Zordon sacrificed himself to rid himself of all the evil villains in the universe. Remember, obviously, there was still some that showed up after from Lost Galaxy and beyond, but this affected Rita and Lord Zed to the point where they wasn't destroyed, but they were basically turned into humans peace-loving humans and things of that nature, and they hook up and things of that nature. So how in the heck did they get an evil son? It's not like they gave birth to a human, you know, a human boy, and he became, no, he was like a monster, like a hybrid monster thing or whatever. And he was evil. And I'm looking like, what is that? How did he survive? Like, how did he escape? You know, what happened? Like, what was that about? And then, to make matters worse, he shows up and got all the main villains who was going at it with each other in the Rangers to join forces against the Rangers. And then somehow he taps into the morphing grid and basically prevents the Rangers from morphing or, you know, using their powers. And yet, these 5 Rangers could do that. The 5 that I talk about, you know, the SPD green/red Ranger, the Dino Thunder yellow Ranger. So forth. I'm like, how can they morph, but Operation Overdrive can't? That's so stupid. That makes no sense. And then, because these 5 Rangers, who, well, some of them had teamed up with each other before through other crossovers, but they working so well together that the Operation Overdrive Rangers are like, well, they got this. I can return to my former life. So they went to their old lives, and the Red Ranger, his, like, it's so stupid because his father, quote unquote, oversees the Rangers' duties. So it's like he just sits around the house and do nothing. And I'm like, and then you got the 6th Ranger, Operation Overdrive Red Ranger. He came from another planet to come to Earth for some, obviously, I guess was it revenge? I forgot what he came for. But he doing nothing for the most part. And I'm like, y'all couldn't fight like the foot soldiers or the Putty Patrol or Operation Overdrive to make the 5 Rangers who can morph somehow, some way easier? Like, that make no sense. Obviously, they wanted to be Rangers. They wanted to put up the fight. But because they can't morph, and these 5 Rangers can morph and doing the job so well, they're like, oh, they got this, man. They don't need us no more. We might as well just give up and go home. I'm like, no, fight the foot soldiers and let them fight the monsters. Like, it was so stupid. Operation Overdrive was so stupid. The common sense was not there. And the actors was like, blah. So, I spent a lot of time on that one, and this is just the beginning. Let's move on to number 3, Mystic Force. Mystic Force, I didn't really like this one because they really knocked off Harry Potter with this one because, and this was after SPD. So basically, you got Power Rangers wearing capes, and they got magic wands or something, you know, whatever. And you know, you got fairies, you got trolls and all, and I think witches in this joint. What is it? Wait a minute. Trolls and witches and fairy things. What is this, David the Gnome? Like, that's like they really went with the Harry Potter route. Now, granted, yes, it's unique. Like, it never been done before. It never been done since. But I don't know. Like, the Harry, like, again, I never really was into Harry Potter like that. I seen the last 2 movies and they were good, but that's beside the point. But for them to go with this Harry Potter route, it looks so goofy and gimmicky, in my opinion. And then the Red Ranger, to me, like, he was the worst one on the show. Like, he was the worst one on the show. And that they try to make this story mostly around him. Because basically, in order for you to be a Ranger, you have to be like, I believe in magic, and like truly believe in magic. In order for you to morph and become a Ranger. It's so stupid. And the season ends with the Red Ranger leaving because he came to this town not knowing who his family was or whatever. And then he found his family. And then he leaves town with them instead of hanging out with the other Rangers. And you know that one of those 2 girls, because they sisters, but one of them had a crush on her. So instead of hooking up with her and spending some time with her, he hooks up with her and then leaves. And I'm like, what? Now, granted, yes, I get it. He just found his family in the form of his mother, father. I think it was his mother, father, something like that. But I'm like, you can bring the new girlfriend with you? I mean, come on, bro. But aside from that, there was no Power Ranger team up, so that hurt this one. And even though I seen it from start to finish, it did not leave a major impact. It left no impact on me at all. And the theme, I didn't like the opening theme, man, because they try to go with this rap thing, and that was another part of Operation Overdrive. That opening theme was worse than Mystic Force. At least the hook was catchy, you know, a Mystic Force, but Operation Overdrive was like, ugh. But Mystic Force, again, no Power Ranger team up. The story was bland, like it was too gimmicky for me. And I didn't like the Red Ranger. Obviously, I didn't like the Red Ranger here more so than the Red Ranger than Operation Overdrive. Now, let's move on to number 2, and this is going to shock y'all. So let me explain to you what number 2 is. Number 2, Turbo. For the longest time, I looked at Turbo and said that this is the all-time worst Power Ranger show of all time. So you're probably wondering, why you put this at number 2? Well, after thinking about it and comparing it to what number 1 is, I had to move it back to number 2. And Turbo was... Here's the problem, and this is me as a little kid. So I'm watching the first 3 seasons of Power Rangers, right? And I'm like, man, this is the greatest thing ever. You know, I watched the little spinoff, the Alien Rangers. You know, and this point I'm a fan. I can't turn my back on it. Even though Alien Rangers was like, it was continuing the story, so I had to watch it, and I had a problem with it. You know, but it's not nothing like the first 3 seasons and things of that nature. So I'm watching it. Then we get to Zeo, which I think is the all-time best Power Ranger show of all time. And then we go from Zeo to Turbo. And here's the problem with Turbo. First of all, like I said, remember when I talked about that 10th-year anniversary special episode where they didn't bring back Rocky because he suffered an injury? He was replaced by a little kid named, what is it, Justin or Dustin? It's one of those two. And so he was replaced as the Blue Ranger. And when this kid morphs, he morphs into a fully adult Blue Ranger. It's not like he morphs into a Kitty Ranger. That makes no sense. Like, if you go to RPM, the Green Ranger, I forgot his name. He's like this skinny, somewhat of a short dude. When he morphs, he, for the most part, maintained his height and weight. But when this kid morphs, he grows up, he gets muscles, and I'm like, what? And even as a kid, that turned me off. I stopped watching Power Rangers after that. As a kid, I was like, no, this makes no sense. I'm done. Like, I'm done with Power Rangers. Obviously that was before, I forgot what brought me back in, because they came out with a bunch more seasons since then. But Turbo really turned me off, man, because of that right there. And then once I got back into Power Rangers and I started rewatching some of those Power Ranger shows that I missed, like Turbo, I watched it from start to finish. They got in the Phantom Ranger and the Blue Centurion. How you pronounce that? First of all, the Phantom Ranger is not even a human being. I don't know what it is, but yet, even though it's not a human being, I have no clue what it is. But yet, him and the Pink Ranger have this relationship, and I'm like, how is that possible? We don't know what the Phantom Ranger is. Like, I don't recall what it is. I don't know what it is. Like, I never seen the Phantom Ranger demorph. So I'm like, how in the heck can the Pink Ranger have a relationship with that? Like, what is that? I don't know what that is. So there was no 6 Power Ranger member. Like, they had some allies. They had 2 allies, and that was it. And the main villain was so stupid and childish, it was ridiculous. And I couldn't take it seriously. Now, and if memory serves me correctly, there was no Power Ranger team up. There was no Power Ranger team up in Turbo. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was no. Well, obviously, this was before they started the actual Power Ranger team up, as we got to Lost Galaxy. Yeah, but at least we seen in the past where, like, for example, Zeo would team up with the Alien Rangers, or Mighty Morphin would team up with the Alien Rangers, or something like that. They could have brought back the Alien Rangers, but they didn't. They didn't, and it was so garbage. And they got rid of Tommy, who was at this point like the was he the longest? Is he the him or Billy? Like the longest running Ranger of all time at that point. So it was like, dang, that's messed up. Now, let me explain to you why I had to move Turbo from number 1 to number 2. Why Turbo is no longer the worst Power Ranger show of all time. First of all, the Red Ranger was black. So this was the first time in history that the Red Ranger was black. So that was dope. Like, this guy replaced Tommy. So that was dope. Number 2, how this show ended was one of the most devastating endings of all time. But yet it was dope. Here's what happened. So I think the main villain or villainess had a twin sister. And when she showed up, she was like, okay, I don't know what my twin was doing, but we are not playing around here. We are not messing around here. We going at them like right full force or whatever. And she had her army storm their raid to the command center. They broke in that joint, fought the Rangers, defeated the Rangers, tore the command center down, and then ultimately destroyed it. I was like, they just went savage season on this joint. Like, oh my gosh. Now, there's one thing I forgot that kind of messed the show up, and that's this. I'm going to do this by imitation. Yo, Rangers. I was like, really? Alpha 6. So they replaced Zordon in Alpha 5 with some chick in Alpha 6. And they try to make Alpha 6 sound so here. That's another thing that turned me off as a kid. I'm like, what is that? I just kept hearing this. Yo, Rangers, you got to do this with the hoo-ha and the hoot nanny. I'm like, did they try to make him sound like a hip-hop rap? Like, what? No. Like, that was so retarded. But I moved it down from number 1, number 2, because again, the first ever Black Ranger was black. Red Ranger was black. And how this show ended. Like, it ended on a cliffhanger. Because the command center was destroyed. The Rangers was defeated. The Turbo Rangers lost their powers. And the main villain was about to take over the world. And then somebody else showed up and like, no, screw planet Earth. We need you at this meeting now. So her boss showed up and she was like, oh, damn, I can't really go against her. So they left the planet and Zordon was kidnapped at this point. So the Rangers had to go off in space to find Zordon and to see what's up with that. Now, the kid couldn't go. I mean, he's a kid. I mean, come on now. So it ended on a cliffhanger. That's why I had to move it down to number 2. But it was still bad. There was still episode. Like, for example, the Rangers were baked into a pizza. I was like, what? Like, what? How? It was so stupid. But they had some good, some historical good, but not enough for me to say, oh, it was not as bad, or it was better than Mystic Force. And no, I can't. Turbo was like really, really bad, but they did have some historic feats. Now, with all that out the way, let's go on to number 1, Mega Force, Super Mega Force. Okay, this one. Let's. Wow. There's a smile on my face right now thinking about it. I don't know where to begin with this. I guess we should start off with when it was originally Mega Force. So let me explain something to you guys real quick. Before Mega Force dropped, now before Mega Force, it was Samurai and Super Samurai. So they were working on Mega Force, and one of the biggest things that we heard about Mega Force was the legendary battle. So what that is basically every single Ranger from the past will show up for this one epic battle. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be lit. This is gonna be hype. This is gonna be crazy. Like, who they gonna bring back? Like, it was so crazy. So we get into Mega Force. And I'm watching Mega Force, and it was like, okay. Like, the Red Ranger was, to me, was too generic. And really, he should have hooked up with the Pink Ranger, because there was somewhat of a connection there. They didn't really capitalize on that. That was mostly because the Black Ranger had the thing for the Yellow Ranger. And by the end of Super Mega Force, we can't necessarily say that they hooked up. All that happened was that she kissed him on the cheek. So you can't necessarily say that they hooked up. But it was more like she was being nice to him, since everybody and their mama knew that the Black Ranger had a thing for the Yellow Ranger. And I will admit, the Yellow Ranger is fine as heck on here. The Pink Ranger is fine as heck on here as well. But Mega Force, Really, Megaforce was better than Super Megaforce because the story was better. Well, not slightly. It was better, but it still wasn't good enough in my opinion. So I was just tolerating Megaforce because I couldn't wait for Super Megaforce, aka the show that had the legendary battle episode. I couldn't wait for that, and they had Robo Knight as their sixth ally in Megaforce, and I was like, I don't know about Robo Knight as an ally, but Robo Knight the character was actually pretty good. He was actually pretty good, despite the whole him trying to be like a rapper or whatever. That was pretty funny, but whatever. So we get on from Megaforce, and that ended in a good cliffhanger. So we get on from Megaforce to Super Megaforce, and here's where things just like went crazy. First of all, they went from this epic look, this epic fit, because it's Megaforce. When you hear a name like Megaforce, you know it's something epic. It's something grand. So they went from, because they look like they was like the strongest Rangers of all time. That's how Megaforce looked. But they went from that to Super Megaforce. And in Super Megaforce, they got their Super Megaforce mode where they basically look like freaking pirates. So how you go from having a look that makes you look like you're epic, look like the next renaissance of Rangers, and then you turn around to transform into pirates? I'm like, they had a pirate ship and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? Now, I will admit, there were some episodes where they were fighting against their version of the Putty Patrol Rebel. These Rangers look gangsters, especially the Red Ranger. He would not, like, he was hilarious. He would nonchalantly just like block punches from these Putty Patrols or whatever they were. And just like with less effort, little to no effort, raise his hand because he had a gun in his hand. And just like simply blast them with the gun. And it was so hilarious. I was rolling. They made it look so gangster with it. Now, I will admit, I like the Blue Ranger here as well, because even though he's like the nerd of the group, and he's black, but he's the nerd of the group, but yet he's like the most honorable guy. Well, let me rephrase that. He's the most honorable fighter. Here's what I mean by that. Like, if there's a villain who is all about using swords and want to challenge Rangers one-on-one, things of that nature, the Blue Ranger would step up like, yeah, I'm taking this challenge. Let's go. Not the red. You would think the red would do that, but no, it's the blue. And there was a few episodes like that. And I'm like, that's actually kind of dope. I will admit, that was fun. Megaforce, and especially Super Megaforce. So there was, the Rangers would trade weapons with each other because they get a sword and a gun. So sometimes they'll trade weapons where one of the Rangers would get 2 swords, mostly the Blue Ranger, and another Ranger would get 2 guns, mostly, man, me says it correctly, Pink Ranger. But yeah, it was dope. Now, I will admit, the one thing that they did do in Super Megaforce, where they brought back old Rangers from the past on more than one episode. Like, they brought back Jaden in one episode. They brought back the Red Wild Force Ranger in another episode. They brought back not Wild Force, Jungle Fury. I want to say they brought back one, and they brought back Jaden's mentor too. And I want to say they brought back one more person, but I don't remember who it is. But yeah, they brought back some of these old elements. And let's talk about that for a second. So when we got to RPM, right? We get to RPM. They had to go to another dimension because RPM is in another dimension. Okay, makes sense. But this mug looks so Speed Racer futuristic. It looks like nobody there except for the Red Ranger's vehicle, which is like a race car. And what I mean by the Red Ranger, I mean the Red Ranger from RPM. And I'm like, okay, I don't recall that. Like, I had to think about, like, I don't recall that. It was so stupid. The whole place looked weird. The whole place looked retarded and things of that nature. Now, so they brought in a 6th Ranger, right? So in Super Megaforce, they brought in a 6th Ranger. Okay, he got a decent story because the main they keep alternating. It's like you got the main villain, you got his 2 sons, and I'm like, okay, what now? It was crazy. And then, they kind of, I think they destroyed the 6th Ranger's planet, something like that. So he showed up for revenge and to prevent Earth from sharing his planet's fate or whatever. Okay, that's cool. So, and then they brought in Robo Knight as a 2-part episode near the end, and I felt like that was left on. And actually, Robo Knight rather sacrificed himself to save the Sixth Ranger. So you think Robo Knight is gone, like he's destroyed, right? And then we get to the legendary battle. The legendary battle. So here's the deal with that. I'm gonna get on the on screen, and then I'm gonna talk about the off screen. And I'm at the 30-minute mark, I know. But here's what happened on screen. So, first of all, the legendary battle episode that they gave, first of all, this was a 3-parter. This was a 3-part episode finale, actually. The first 2 episodes was about the Rangers going up against, was it a 3-parter or a 2-parter? I want to say 3-parter. But it was the Rangers going up against the main villain. So at this point, the main villain was like, okay, screw this nonsense. We just going to send every single monster that we have or putty patrol that we have in their vehicles to the planet to destroy blah, blah, blah. And the Rangers will fight them off. Okay, cool. I think this was a 2-parter. So, on the last episode, it was mostly about the Megaforce Rangers and they going at it with the enemy by themselves, and they destroyed the main villain. So, on what they gave us, the main villain was destroyed in the ship through an explosion. So, and he looked badass, but yeah, he got destroyed in the explosion of his own ship. And then you got all these leftover villains who are still there. They coming at them. All of a sudden, here comes every single Ranger from the past. Because here's the thing about Super Megaforce. So not only did these Rangers have their Megaforce mode, and then they had a special mode while in Megaforce mode, and then they could transform to Super Megaforce, and then they got Legendary mode, so they can become every Ranger from the past. It's so stupid. So I'm like, they got at least 4 forms, and that 4th form could be any Ranger form they want. It's so ridiculous, so stupid. It's so retarded. So every single Ranger from the past showed up. And here's the things that was dumb, and maybe because of Super Sentai footage, whatever. So in the legendary battle, the actual legendary battle, you got the Megaforce Rangers in their Megaforce mode. Not Super Megaforce, but their regular Megaforce outfits. I'm like, what is this? And then, so they fighting, you know, they talking to each other, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, the enemy is coming. Like, you would think they would show up by now, but I don't know. They must have been walking 2 miles per hour so everybody can see them. So I don't know. Shout out to Ludacris. But, so then they fight the enemy, and they win, obviously. All of a sudden, here comes Robo Knight. Robo Knight shows up for like 5 seconds. I'm like, what? He was supposed to be destroyed. How is that possible? And then, when it was all over, the old Rangers left, including Robo Knight, because you would think Robo Knight would stay with the Megaforce Rangers. No, he didn't. It was so stupid. So what they gave us on TV was such garbage. It was trash. So then they came out with an extended version, calling it the real version. And the real version wasn't even that much better. So first of all, the main villain survived the plane crash. And the 6 Rangers actually battle against the main villain. And let me explain something to you guys real quick about this legendary mode real quick. So they can transform to any single Ranger that they want. So we seen it where they transform into Mighty Morphin, they transform to Zeo, they transform to Turbo. The problem was they had their favorites. Like they're transforming to Samurai a lot. They transform into Wild Force a lot. They transform to Jungle Fury a lot. They transform into... Really, those 3 were their favorites. Like, they were really their favorites. I'm like, can we get some more variety? Like, gun dang. Oh, and SPD. They transformed to SPD a lot. And here's the thing that got me. So you mean to tell me that y'all transformed into SPD so many times, but yet y'all didn't go SWAT mode? Like, they transformed, like, there was a moment where they was like, okay, everybody go Red Ranger. Y'all didn't use Battleizers? Like, with the main villain... Yeah, like they transform to different Rangers. Like, for example, the Black Ranger. Oh, by the way, the Black Ranger, the Black Megaforce Ranger, when he becomes a Super Megaforce, he's green. It's so stupid. And then he transformed to the SPD Green Ranger. He finally goes SWAT mode. And then some of the other Rangers, when they transform, wherever they use Battleizers. It's so, like, it was so stupid. It was so stupid. I'm like, bro, they are not unlocking the full potential of these legendary modes. It was so frustrating to watch because you would think, okay, they were that powerful, they don't need them. But in some cases, they was getting their asses whooped in some cases. And I'm like, Battleizers, SPD SWAT mode, you got all these arsenals and weapons at your disposal. Why aren't you using them? It was so ridiculous. Now, with that out the way, let's get on with what happened off screen. So here's what happened. So basically, this is based off of what this chick, I forgot what her real name is, but this is the black chick who played Aisha, who is without question the finest female ranger of all time. She's the finest, the sexiest female ranger of all time. She did a podcast, and basically here's what happened. So, obviously with the legendary battle, they had to contact past rangers or the actors and actresses who played these past rangers. So obviously they're all adults. So you're thinking, okay, they're going to get like a business email or some type of phone call from Saban saying, hey, we're doing a legendary battle. We want you to come back for this episode or for these episodes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Nope. They get an email, a mass email saying, not crappy now, they said, Rangers, we need your help. We need you to come to New Zealand to take on the forces of evil. It was something like that. And I'm like, what? But despite that, some of them actually apply or reply rather and say, yeah, I'll show up to fight the forces of evil, quote unquote. Yeah, let's do that. And they'll hear nothing. They will hear nothing. Oh, wait. Before we get to that, here's what happened. So basically, they would be flown out to New Zealand, where they would do 5 days of shooting. 5 days of shooting, but yet they will only get paid for 3. So let me reiterate that. They was only going to get paid for 3 days of shooting, but they was going to be out there for 5, which means the other 2 days they had to pay themselves. Like they had to pay for hotels, they had to pay for food and things of that nature. They're on their own. But 3 days, Saban got them covered. But after that, they're on their own. And I'm like, what? And then now all of them are gonna have lines. Like Tommy was there, obviously, because he's a Saban suck up. But Tommy's cool. So he got the most lines out of those that were brought back. And not everybody who was brought back got lines. They were just there, without the helmets on. And it was like, what? But despite that, some of them said, okay, yeah, I'll just show up, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And now we get to the rating part. And they didn't hear back from Saban or anybody from Saban for a long time. And they had I forgot the number of people they picked. I think they picked like 11, 12, 13. But everybody else was like, they sent the email back saying, yeah, we got the people we want to come back, so you're not needed. Sorry about that. Okay, bye. Yeah, that was it. I was like, bro, that is crazy. So I wish I could find that podcast, but it's been taken down. But I remember the story as far as what happened regarding the legendary battle episodes and things of that nature. It's so retarded. So even without the off-screen stuff, Megaforce / Super Megaforce is without question the worst Power Ranger show of all time. So I'm going to end it on that note, man, because this is nearly a 40-minute video. You would think I would do another Are Black Girls Killing Black Guys Masculinity video. So with all that out the way, man, y'all know who this is. This is your boy, the new Jay Gatsby, a.k.a. the new Stephen A. Smith, saying peace out, y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Yeah.